Okay, hello. This is the General Education Catalog Review done by the General Education Subcommittee. So really briefly, I'll go through a breakdown of the course catalogs by specific colleges that were recommended, as well as overall recommendations for this particular catalog review. So this is Boise State, or at least a portion of Boise State. It looked nice, but I felt like this had more information than what was necessary. For example, do we really need 7 catalogs posted in these large links? In addition, while it was nice to have a link for the undergraduate degree check sheets, instead of it taking you to a Google Drive with every major at the university, it would be better to have a drop-down menu with colleges and subheadings with majors that will take you directly to the majors checklist. The one thing I did find interesting was the information on how to read a course description, but again, do students really need to know this information? For example, what does the course number Business 1349 represent? I'm not sure if they really need to know this, so taking that away might not hurt. So the front page of University of Utah was much more eye-appealing, specifically with links to exactly where you needed to go in terms of minors, undergraduate, graduate, and certificates. I liked how this was organized and felt it was much easier to go to where I needed in the quickest amount of time. I'm not sure if the president's message and picture was necessary, and instead might have been more useful to have students experience in Gen Ed, which is more relatable to students. A couple of things when you click on, for example, the undergraduate degrees, it takes you through a long list of majors. This, in my opinion, which occurred in various schools, doesn't appear professional. My suggestion might be to have just a drop-down list with maybe a few select majors that need growth or are strategic areas for the university. And then have a search bar that also lets students pick and choose what they want to find out of the course catalog. While it was a good website and better than others I saw, again, we have a lot of tabs that aren't really super important. Students just want to get to where they need to get to right away. And sometimes all these extra things can confuse the online course catalog. So this was Southern New Hampshire. This actually had a Gen Ed link on their website. 7 links were provided within the Gen Ed category: General Education Overview, General Education Requirements for bachelor's degrees, Gen Ed Requirements for ABET accredited programs, Gen Ed Requirements for teacher preparation programs, Gen Ed requirements for transferable associate degrees, Gen Ed requirements for applied associate degrees, so on and so forth. So a lot of different links. To be honest, the Gen Ed overview was really disappointing and seemed to be just a waste of space. I really feel like they need to feature student experience to sell Gen Ed. Without that, it's just not interesting. The picture is odd. With the professor and the question and the overhead, it just looks very unprofessional, but they did at least have a Gen Ed portion on their online catalog. This was Murray State. Murray State had a useful search catalog function. I also thought it was useful to have the university vision for external stakeholders. But again, this is not important to undergraduate students looking for a course to take. There was an academic degree and programs tab, which was slightly confusing because when you click on it, all it had listed were definitions. The programs tab was the one that most students would need, and it was just one tab, one small tab behind the other tab. So I really didn't like this website that much. Also, they had an addenda tab that had one course listed as retired. So again, very confusing, not sure the purpose of having a separate tab for addenda and all these other different tabs that really don't matter. I feel like the University of Victoria was slightly confusing as to where a student would start. For example, they had a search calendar bar, but what are you supposed to do with that? The programs similar to others were listed in list form. You could search through a search bar, but It just appears unprofessional with some of the many programs listed. Additionally, the front page really doesn't provide much information. I'm not sure why some information is on here. For example, why do we need to know about the research centers, information for faculty in the undergraduate course catalog? Additionally, the terms used at UVIC was long and confusing. It just wasn't necessary. I would think students would know what is meant by the term course. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know if you need to have these listed on the website or the course catalog, even though they might be listed in the in-person catalog. BYU was perhaps the most surprising. BYU again placed an emphasis on the president's message. They did have useful links, including academic deadlines by semester and a search catalog, but for being such a well-known institution, it just didn't have the same, I guess, visual appeal, or I was surprised by BYU in terms of the user friendliness, the visual appeal, everything. It's nowhere near the University of Nebraska, which is what I'll talk about next, as I believe University of Nebraska might be a good model for what we do with our particular course catalog. So this was the University of Nebraska. This was by far my favorite out of the course catalogs. It was both visually appealing and interesting. I felt this would help sell certain areas or majors. The one thing I really liked was it had one search bar where a student could type in a keyword or search for everything. I thought this was a wonderful idea and got straight to the point. It had certain majors and areas highlighted, which was great. And in my opinion, this was the easiest to sift through, the most visually appealing, and it just had an essence of professionalism. I would definitely rate this as the model we should look at in terms of developing our own online catalog. So in general, I was actually more impressed with the current catalog of URI than many of these other schools, with the exception of University of Nebraska. I feel like a basic search bar similar to UNL's search everything or search by term will be useful. Additionally, we don't need all of these links, president's message, definitions, faculty information. Students just want to get to where they want to get to in a fast and efficient manner. UNL's page does this, but at the same time also leaves room to advocate for certain areas, colleges, majors, etc. So having an Explore Center, which is what UNL also did, I thought was really a really interesting idea, particularly for undeclared students. And UNL did this, but it wasn't really well done. So if we could take that idea and make it better, I think that would also be a great concept, and also help the university sell certain areas that are strategic or lesser known areas, and really build new programs. So that's all in all what I felt about the different course catalogs. Those are some recommendations, and that concludes this presentation.